Hello, everyone. Welcome to Midweek Gaming. I'm Nick, on this under the comms, of course, Justin, where we cover the games, news, and industry stuffs in an unscripted format, which you can probably get by my absolute professional intro. So, speaking of intros, big news in the games industry this week. Well, actually, quite a bit of games news, but the one we're concerned about this week is big news coming out of the US. Turns out a new law passed by California, the forward-thinking state that it seems to be.
Yes.
Jokes aside, though, it did pass a new law that actually forces digital stores to admit you're just licensing games instead of owning them. Now, this is interesting and kind of a first step in what I would consider a very necessary part of the current games industry. And this is due to the fact that when you buy games, generally speaking, you're not buying the actual game itself on a digital platform. You're buying the license. You're buying the license to use and download the game. And in some cases, not even use that download the game, just use the game. The problem with this is that every one of the stores from Steam to Epic to, they all like buy the game, buy the game, buy the game, buy the game. That is not true because you're not technically buying the game. As one of the famous lines that is kind of being put out there with all this is kind of, if buying is not owning, then stealing is not piracy. And the reason I say this is because this has actually come back to bite people quite often. Myself is in a way as well, because a famous example of the whole mess that comes with the whole owning license and not owning the content is Ubisoft, of all people, unsurprisingly. And this story takes us back to the days of The Crew. Now, The Crew was a multiplayer game that Ubisoft had on their Uplay store. You can make a discussion on whether it should have been multiplayer or not, but, it was. And eventually the game, they just decided, you know what, we're not hosting the servers anymore, we're going to shut down the servers. Now, instead of offering the ability to be, play in single player or have people host their own servers or stuff like that. What they ended up doing is the minute they shut down the servers is they also removed the crew from everyone's libraries. So that meant that if you had a copy of the crew, you no longer could
You're
play the
not
crew. It's
allowed to
just
play
gone.
it no matter what. It's gone.
Yeah, it's just gone. So if you actually paid money to get the crew, uh, too bad. You don't
Sucks
get
to
a
be you,
refund or exchange. It's
basically.
just, yeah, it's just money down the drain. And this is kind of the big things that kind of started the whole kind of, stop killing games movement, which is basically the idea that, if we can't actually own the physical media we're buying online anymore, then what's stopping companies from, again, Ubisoft from
Outright
just saying, you know what,
making
you
you
know,
no longer allowed to have it.
yeah, they're just like, we're done, we don't want it anymore, and then just pull it from their store. And if you paid money for that, then you're out of luck. You're out of money. And that seems extremely illegal and definitely unethical. So that's kind of where this new law doesn't come into effect yet, but it has been passed. The law itself comes into effect, I believe, soon. Let me check the article. Again, all the articles we're referencing are in the description below. But this new law, AB 2426, the wonderful name that is, let me just rule things out here. Oh yeah, and being the whole mess that involved the crew with Ubisoft is actually kind of one of the big drivers behind this law, as well as another incident that this article mentions involving Sony and their whole business with Discovery. For those who don't know, Sony basically had Discovery on their service for streaming content for a while now, and it was from PlayStation users. But because of the agreement with Discovery elapsing and Sony just being like, we don't want anymore, basically people who paid for the Discovery content were basically being told, well, you have Discovery content, too bad, so sad, we're removing it. Oh well. And it caused such a massive backlash that Sony was actually forced to backpedal on the issue and renew their license with Discovery to keep the content. And those are the kind of two big drivers behind this law that the article mentions. And oh my goodness, where does it say? I could have sworn that this darn thing actually gave a specific date for when the law comes into effect. Well, nonetheless. It will be coming into effect soon. Hopefully by the end of this video, the actual thing, I can find a specific date. I swear to God, I thought this article did, but it did not. Whatever. But moving on. But when the law does eventually come into effect, it will, like I said, force digital storefronts to actually put up that you are not actually buying the product, you're actually leasing the product. Because, like I said, you're not buying the item, you're buying the license, or should I say you're renting it if that's the case. For the long run, but again, as we've seen with Sony and Ubisoft, that's not a big thing. Speaking of Sony, that's not the only crime they're guilty of when it comes to license revoking, actually. There was a whole business, and if you're a big anime watcher, you'll definitely have heard of this madness, involving the Crunchyroll Funimation merger and the whole debacle that came out of that. For those who aren't aware, let me just give you the kind of Spark Notes version. So both Crunchyroll and Funimation were the two big names in Western anime localization, dubbing, and distribution for a long time. Crunchyroll primarily did, distributions and comics and stuff like that. Funimation was primarily the dubbing end of it and all. So that was all fine and dandy. There was a bit of a relationship there for a long time now. Eventually, Sony comes along and buys Funimation. Funimation is now under Sony. Sony tries to make Funimation big, makes it, big thing in the anime industry, years go by, and Sony decides to eventually buy Crunchyroll up too. So now they own both. And so what do they decide to do? They decide to merge the two companies under Crunchyroll and basically axe Funimation. Now, this is a big problem, specifically for those who have Funimation subscriptions. For those who don't know, both Funimation and Crunchyroll have their own streaming services, and you can have subscriptions for both of these services independently, because they were both independent. Unfortunately, when Funimation got axed, the entire digital library of those who actually bought stuff in the Funimation ecosystem was not supported by Crunchyroll. And so when Sony basically addressed this, instead of providing a solution or anything, in the article that is kind of in the bottom below, which kind of talks about the whole mess, they literally just said, start over from Crunchyroll. Didn't even attempt to provide a solution. They're just like, too bad, start again at Crunchyroll. And it gets worse, too, because Funimation, like I said, was big in the dubbing business and the actual printing business. And so a lot of the actual discs you bought for anime possibly contained a code in them that allowed you to actually get a digital version of that season on the Funimation website for free. Because if you bought the main disc, you'd get the code and you can redeem it to get the entire season or set's worth of the anime on the distribution service. Seems nice, right? Seems nice, right? Yeah, well, unfortunately, those also didn't get supported. So if you had any of those on your account for Funimation, for your many, many animes, if you have the many, many animes, like me, those aren't supported as well. So any of the stuff that you had online, be it free or paid or otherwise, just gone. And again, Sony did not offer any form of remuneration or exchange fees or refunds or anything. They basically just said, go to Crunchyroll and start over. So this isn't the first time they've done this when it regards to the whole business we were discussing prior. They also did it with the anime industry. So it seems they just love screwing over people and their TV.
Yes.
Be it Discovery or anime.
People are not going to be very happy with it.
Yeah, like I said, not the first time they've tried to mess with people's TV. But, and it ended just as poorly for them the second time. Though the only difference is, unlike the Discovery matter, they did not backpedal at all with the whole animation business with Crunchyroll. And to this day, all the Funimation stuff you had is gone, just like Funimation. RIP. But, so yeah, that's kind of the current state of things. And like I said, people are specifically pointing out Ubisoft, because when most people think about unethical business practices when it comes to dealing with licenses, most people think of Ubisoft. And like I said, the crew being the big issue. But like I said, this isn't the only company that's done it. We pointed out Sony. I'm pretty sure Steam may have done it on the down low a few times, though I can't think of any specific examples. But yeah, this is a major step in the games industry because it'll basically force game sellers, online stores such as again the Play Store, Ubisoft Store, Steam, GOG, all of them really. Which, funny enough, GOG they actually commented on the post for Twitter when this kind of came out and kind of just went well, which since they offer DRM-free games, it makes sense. For those who don't know, DRM is basically digital rights management. And any game with DRM basically ensures that if the game is active, it must be constantly checking the license and checking your digital account from wherever you bought it from to see if that game is owned. Which is why GOG is such a big popular platform because it all sells DRM free games. So basically, what this means is that when you download something from GOG, and I'm not praising GOG or or shilling them here. I'm just using it for the sake of the video here. But when you download GOG from their games, you are just downloading all the files to that game. So if you never need to check in with GOG again after that. You never need to re-sign into GOG. You just download the files and you have them locally and you just play and go. So, worst case scenario, GOG ever goes out of business, you can quite literally just take all those files, transfer them onto a drive, and just play them on a new computer. That's it. But with DRM games, you can't do that because it constantly needs to check your license and stuff like that. Because you're not technically downloading just the files, you're also you're not just downloading the files, you're also downloading something that constantly has to check to see if you actually have the thing that allows you to play the game. And again, that's kind of one of the big issues with the games industry with DRM and stuff like that, which is kind of where this all wraps into the whole thing of once this goes into effect, game companies or game distributors online will have to be more upfront and actually tell people, yeah, you're not actually buying the product to own, you're just buying the license, which may or may not be revoked at any point given the company you're dealing with. So yeah, it will definitely be interesting to see how this shakes up. I'm definitely interested to see if Steam changes up its entire its entire U.S. Store to kind of reflect this, because I doubt they're just going to change the store localization just for California. Like, I don't think they go that microscopic when it comes to like how they manage their storefronts.
No.
So this is probably going to get
They're
reflected across all of them.
certainly, with how they pretty much do specific things, chances are localization for California is like definitely going to be very different in regards to how they're going to set up legal action and the likes.
Yeah. So, like I said, it'll definitely be interesting to see how this is reflected. Like I said, the entire Western kind of system might change as a result of this. I doubt, like anywhere in like the Great Britain or Australian versions of Steam will reflect this, but I'm definitely certain that like in the U.S. specifically and maybe in Canada, possibly we'll see. They might change it to reflect this law. Definitely in the US entirely though, because like I said, I doubt they change just the local like Steam register just for California specifically, because it's based off country, not like individual place you live specifically. And will this cut into the bottom line of these companies? Maybe. I mean, I don't know if everyone will be willing to buy games so readily online in a digital-only future if they are more aware of the fact that, no, you're not buying the game itself, you're buying just the license to use the software. So, we will see. Maybe there will be some dips in profit margins. And again, this is already a law that's been signed into effect. It hasn't come into effect yet, but it has already been passed, so they can't really do anything about it unless they, push Parliament to retroactively revoke the law, which that's extremely hard to do. So, we'll see. But yeah, what do you think about all this, Joseph?
It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting how Steam's going to set up for future proofing in regards to preventing legal action, as well as making sure that the users, get what they want as well as are informed properly.
Yeah,
because no matter what, they have, as a distributor, they're gonna have to enforce a lot of specific things.
I can imagine Ubisoft is sweating bullets Because, like I said, they're technically the ones who kind of they're the ones who kind of made this mess.
Yes.
So to all the Ubisoft executives out there, if you're sitting there going, "Ah, crap, my profit margins," all I can say is, mate, the only one you have to
Boo-hoo.
blame for this is yourself.
All that can be said is boo-hoo.
Yeah, boo! You made this mess. You reap what you sow, booger. but yeah. So yeah, that kind of brings us to the current events of the week. Definitely something I want to see. Baby steps in the right direction. Definitely is not overall sweeping change, but as far as the US is concerned, it's definitely a step in the right direction. Who knows? Maybe we'll see other countries emulating it eventually. I hope so, actually. Because like I said, it's the whole DRM licensing thing. It's at its core a very deceptive business practice. But yeah, that brings us to the end of this week. So if there's no further commentary from you, Justin, I'll call it then. And again, all the comments or all the articles we've referenced in the description box below. So go give those a good thorough read if you're interested in the juicy details we didn't cover in this video. And yeah, see you all next week. Bye bye, everybody.
Have a good one.